and this is the Shut Up and Just Create podcast. I am your host, Ayanna Shon'S, and I have Mr. Kevin Foster, who is a writer, comedian from Compton, California, that is currently writing on Craig Ross Jr.'s Monogamy, the top-rated show on UMC TV. And your background starts from the 90s of doing comedy. Is that correct?
You know, I was writing comedy. I wasn't performing comedy.
Okay.
But I actually, I actually got into writing because I had a photography business, and I was shooting a lot of actors and actresses. We were doing their headshots and stuff, and I befriended a lot of them, and I was looking at a lot of their scripts, you know, because they were going on auditions and they had to keep updating their looks. So I give them new pictures. And then I got to look at their scripts, and it was like, this isn't that good, you know? It didn't seem that hard. But what I learned, this is back in the 90s now, there weren't a lot of black writers in TV. So you had a lot of white writers trying to write dialogue for black characters.
Okay. And I can understand that.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at this going, well, this isn't us. This isn't how we sound. and the actors would tell me, well, we have some levity. We can sometimes make some changes on set.
Okay.
They would confide in me. They said, no, there's no black writers in the room. And I was like, wow, this is a black show. There's no black writers in the room. And then a very good friend of mine, Jasmine Lewis. Everybody knows her. She's been in the business forever. Gotcha. And she's always working. But most people know her as Ice Cube's wife in the Barbershop series.
Okay. Yes.
But she was up for, it was a big movie. I think it was Independence Day.
Oh, wow.
And she was up for the part that was eventually given to Vivica.
Okay.
And Vivica Fox. And I was reading the dialogue for it, and the banter between that character and the Will Smith character wasn't,
didn't connect.
No. And so I wrote her some sample stuff, and then she was like, well, why don't you, you ought to consider writing.
Why don't you do this yourself?
Yeah. And that's what I would do. I would get scripts that she was on. She was on a lot of shows.
Okay.
And I'd read her scripts, and then I'd write an episode of whatever show she was on. And I was doing that essentially for practice. But
gotcha.
But she and I worked on a film called The Matador Principle a long time ago, and it was getting picked up and was going to be produced, and then as some things happen, they fall out of production. But after that, I had the bug. I figured, okay.
I got you. You was like, hey, let me go ahead and get my hands in the ring. I've seen what they try to portray us as on the screen. There's a missing hole here. Let me go ahead and get in where I fit in.
There's a lot of stories we have to tell. Black people are not a monolith. We have a lot of different ways to tell our story.
When you come to mainstream, they always have it represented in one manner or two manners, and it never deviates from the script. It's the same story, different actors. You get what I'm saying? Same story, different actors.
Well, we get in this rut of where we think that we all have the same story. I grew up in Compton, which is if you believe the hype, it's supposed to be like this gang riddled,
right.
Totally, like living in Beirut or something. I get this all the time. You don't sound like you're from Compton. Like I'm supposed to be.
Does that? How do you feel when someone say that? Like, how do I supposed to sound? So
and it's funny. It's funnier when I get that from black people. But that's usually I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me make you a little more comfortable. Let me go get my gun. It's in the car.
Let me go get my flag.
Yeah.
Because right now I got it hanging around, tied across two dice that's on the on the.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, here, let me get my sea walk on. Yeah, baby. But no, it's funny. It's I'm not. I mean, the people that I grew up in Compton sound exactly like I do.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I have a switch. that I can flip.
I'm
If
sure.
I need to.
I think we all have that switch.
You know.
I think we all have that switch.
Don't let the articulation fool you. If I need to get hard, I can get hard, but that didn't come out right. But you know what I'm saying.
Pause. Wrong
Compton
commercial.
Exactly.
Commercial.
Compton is a great place to be from because you get balance.
I got you.
I grew up in an area that was kind of upper echelon for Compton's standpoint. My father was a general manager of a car dealer. My mom was a computer programmer. So my life was
so you grew up on the other side of the railroad tracks.
You know,
Compton had a track.
Yeah, exactly. It was Long Beach Boulevard. I grew up on the west side of Long Beach Boulevard.
I got you.
But our area was really nice. I mean, we had veterinarians and lawyers and things like business owners, things like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, the kids in my neighborhood, you had a little bit of everything. I mean, you had blue collar dads. You had some great athletes. There was probably 4 professional athletes on my block. So
this is what we're gonna say. So Kevin came from Long Beach, California, but Kevin came from the burbs of Long Beach, California.
No, I came from Compton. I moved to Long Beach.
Came from Compton, moved to Long Beach, in the burbs area of it.
Oh, I'm totally burbs now. I am so embarrassed by my neighborhood. It's no Brady Bunch, but where I grew up, my neighborhood was nice. But if you went across a couple of streets, you kind of.
I got you. You see what Compton or what Long Beach really looks like. I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
Exactly. So, but when you tell someone you're from Compton, they automatically assume you're going to be less intelligent, less qualified, more violent, and all these things. So I spent a lot of my life trying to live down that stereotype.
Okay.
It's probably one of the reasons that it helped my writing, because it made me want to build my vocabulary so that no one would assume that I was less intelligent by the way I spoke.
I got you. So
that little insecurity actually helped.
Let me make sure I pull out my T.I. Webster while I'm on this podcast with you. Therefore, I can make sure that I articulate in the manner that is not so Southern, so that I'm able to keep up with you in this podcast.
Well, it's funny. It helps, in my era, I came up in the 70s, 80s, and police were really hard on us.
Gotcha.
On us in particular. So a lot of times,
they changed.
It's different. The Rodney King with the filming has got them a little more accountable, but the attitude is still there. I mean, you take
accountable.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be, but
okay. I was just trying to see.
Put it this way: it's better than it was in the sense that in my day, it was normal for everybody in the neighborhood to have a cops whoop my ass story, And my son is not going to have a cops whoop my ass.
I got you.
Yeah, it was normal for us.
I got you. So when it came to coming from where you come from, and even with I want to kind of take some time out on what you just shared, even though I know this is not necessarily what this podcast is about. But you're speaking on
relatable.
Right, exactly. So what you're stating is, hey, what went on back then as far as with the whole Rodney King situation, this was an everyday type of lifestyle that we lived in. Rodney King just so happened to made it national.
Absolutely. For us, and that was one of the reasons why it was so upsetting for many of us. When it happened, when the Rodney King thing happened, my first impression was, finally it's on tape. Finally. Because usually it's just your word against
I got you.
White cops.
Right.
It's on tape. Finally they'll believe us. And they still didn't. Which is people believe.
Hey, which relates now though? Which relates now?
It
It's
absolutely does.
it's
Believe what they want to believe. They'll ignore their eyes and believe what they want to believe. And I'll tell you a perfect story, and it totally relates to writing. I had an opportunity to write for a network TV show, and this was back in the 90s,
okay.
mid to late 90s. I can't even really name the show. I mean,
I got you. I got you. I
but
got you.
it was a white show, we'll say. I can't say the network. But the Jackson 5 had a song.
I can't even share that.
Neither one of us can. But I can hum it. I can't say it.
We're gonna fix this in post.
And see, this is pre-Zoom, pre-FaceTime, pre all that stuff. So I had conversations with people on phones after they had read my script. And there was kind of a little buzz about that script. Like, hey, there's this new writer we haven't heard about. He's got a nice take on some stuff,
Okay.
So I was starting to get calls, and I got called in on this show. And it's basically, they had phone interviews with me, and they had read my script. And then I got to producers, and they were like, well, basically, we want you on the squad. So you're in show business. And at the time I was a firefighter. So the question was, is this going to be enough for me to leave firefighting?
Okay.
Because I had a young family. So I went to the producers meeting where I was supposed to meet with this guy. And I'm sitting outside his office. He comes out, looks at me, walks back in his office. And he does this for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours straight. He comes out every 15 to 20 minutes, looks at me and walks back in, doesn't ask me a question, doesn't ask his concierge why I'm sitting outside his office or anything. But in his mind, the Kevin Foster that had written that Frasier spec script,
he hadn't made it yet.
Didn't look
he
nothing
hadn't
like
pulled
me.
up yet.
Yeah, he didn't know what he looked like, but he knew he didn't look like me in his mind. So finally he's leaving. He's got his briefcase and he's heading out. And he goes, you've been here all day. Who are you here to see? And I went, and I said the name. It's just the same name on the door. And he goes, well, I only had one meeting. It was at 2:30. I said, yeah, I was here at like 2:12 for my 2:30. Now it's 4:30. I said, now that you know it's me, can we still have the meeting? He's like, well, come in. And so he brought me into his office, and then he goes, hey, and he called the producer of another show and goes, hey, and he looks at me and goes, are you free tomorrow? Are you free tomorrow? And I went, okay, I can get free. What do we need to do? And he gets on the phone, he tells his buddy, he goes, hey, I got this guy to be perfect for you. And the show that he told him that I'd be perfect for was Homeboys in Outer Space.
I figured you was gonna say it was a black show.
Yeah. And you can't get no black.
But I wrote for Frasier. Right?
Exactly. That was my point. And I was
like those are totally two different.
Exactly. Two different, completely different
if
genres.
Night and Day was a Night and Day, that would have started Night and Day.
Exactly. So that's what I heard from that. And I was like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a show that's going to get legs. It's going to be lasting for 5 seasons. Where this other show sounds like the kind of show that if I get on, I can leave firefighting.
Right. Gotcha.
And make a long story short, I passed on the opportunity to have that other meeting. And I got kind of disgruntled with the Hollywood thing in general. So I kind of backed away from it, and I wrote some things for animation. Luckily, animated characters could be any color. They could be plaid. So I was able to do some things, in that realm, and I was a joke writer for, some comedians and things like that. And I did what was called comedy punch-up, where a director or somebody would give me a script and say, hey, this is the episode for this show, and I like it, but it's just not moving in the first 10 pages.
Okay.
And so they hand it to you, and basically your job is to find something about the characters, give them some more dialogue, add an element, do something. It's like script doctoring, where you punch it up, make it funnier, and then they pay you under the table. Because they can't credit you for that because they've already budgeted.
I got you.
So I did a lot of uncredited script doctoring and comedy punch up, and it kept me close enough to the industry where it held my interest.
I got
But
you.
I kind of left it alone. I did other things, and
So
then
tell me, when it came to, he says, okay, look, I have somebody for you that I want you to meet, do the homeboy and out of space aspect, and with you passing on that, what, aside from, okay, this is not a show that will have longevity to where I can leave firefighting, but some of us might have been like, I would have still took that opportunity to kind of
yeah,
get in, so to speak, or actually, what
yeah.
made you say, you know what? Nah, this would not be my route. I would still get to where I'm going, but this won't be the route that I take.
Here's the thing. If I was, at the time, I was in my probably 30s.
Okay.
If I had been in my 20s without a kid,
Gotcha.
okay,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
But in my 30s with a family, I was like, no. And here's the other thing too. Firefighting was a good gig. So if I had a job that I didn't like or something, it'd have been like, okay, let me leave this quickly to do
Okay.
this now.
Okay.
But I was kind of
Gotcha.
satisfied. I was like, I can do this on the side, and I can still be attached to the industry, but I don't even know if I want to be part of it.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
then like I've had other opportunities where people would say, well, why didn't you just like I had a romantic comedy that I wrote that the lead character was like a vice president at an aerospace company, and he's black, divorced, had a young son who was about to go into college, and he was going to be a mechanical engineer. So
okay.
the dynamic between him and his son was really highbrow, because they're two smart young, a young man and an old man. They're both really smart.
Right.
So their humor was smart. And it was him getting back into the whole dating thing after becoming a bigger success after his first marriage.
Okay.
And he had a black love interest.
Okay.
Who was the head of an electronic auditing firm that was working with his company. So we had all these really technical people, and they were all black.
Gotcha.
And the script was getting a lot of buzz, and I had producers that were telling me, I really love the script, but if you want us to sell it, or if you want the studio to buy it, you got to make the characters white, because no one's going to believe
that this is real.
Yeah. No one's going to believe you literally have a rocket scientist as your lead character. No one's going to believe.
And he's black.
A black rocket scientist. Here's the worst part. They did a table read and tested it with an audience. So they just had actors read the script. They tested it with a primarily black audience. And what did they say? It's unrealistic.
This wasn't
unrealistic. Yeah. So we are our own worst enemy in that regard sometimes.
Gotcha.
We were talking earlier about, like you get pigeonholed into writing one kind of story. Like everybody wanted to write a gang story or a kind of, in the 90s, there were a lot of black sitcoms on, but they were all very kind of similar, and if you weren't going to write for one of those shows, you had to write a show that was like those
shows.
Yeah. Gotcha. Or if you were writing features, everybody wanted a Boys in the Hood 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
Or they wanted something that was gritty. You're from Compton, give me gritty. My father was a sales manager at a Volkswagen dealership. I got gritty. We didn't have that kind of grit at our home.
I got you. I definitely got you on that.
So that was kind of a tough hurdle for me. I passed on some other things that, where I had created it, and then someone wanted to make it completely opposite.
Okay.
And I had the option. Okay, am I going to sell out? Well, I don't want to call it sell it out, because just taking advantage of an opportunity.
But right.
But I want to just sell the script to get my foot in the door, or did I hold on to it and so that I could eventually make it as my own story and have it be a black story? That brings us to now. Now, Okay, you don't need a studio to make a film. You know,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
get my son. My son just graduated from Cal State Long Beach with a degree in film and TV. I can give
Nice.
him two of his friends and
Right.
iPhones.
Gotcha.
And we
Gotcha.
can shoot it short. So I don't need the studios now. I can tell. No, I don't have to wait for them to tell me that character is unrealistic. If I can find,
Right.
yeah, if I can find
Right.
the money or find the time, I can get it made. So now it's a good time. The difference is the money is way different, way different. You know, back in the 90s, if you were on a show, especially a network show, as a writer, you were going to make probably anywhere from 7 to 10,000 or so a week for
Say that
22 weeks.
number one more time. The audio
Like
went out.
7 to
Just
10.
one.
Okay, it was, if you were a writer in the 90s, you were going to be on for you could be making 7 to 10 grand a week for 22 weeks.
Oh
Well,
wow.
that's a couple $100,000, and
Right.
that's 1992 money.
That's why I said, oh wow. That
You
was
know?
that was real money back then.
Come on, it's real money now. It's real. But back then, I mean, even I'm in Southern California. The LA housing market is ridiculous.
Right.
You know, my first home I bought in Compton was $105,000. It was a brand new home, and it was a nice area and all that kind of stuff. That same home I bought in 1989. That same home now is $600,000. You know,
Wow.
so you know, to for someone to give you a couple $100,000 back then,
Right.
and you could work it
Right.
here and buy a house. You wouldn't be in Beverly Hills.
Right. But you have a house.
You could be in Inglewood. You know, you could be in Southgate. You could be in Linwood. You could be in Carson. You'd have a house. So it was good money. But now, if network money is still similar, I mean, if you're on a network show, yeah, you're still going to make, well over 100,000 in salary. Then you're going to get a couple of shows that you're responsible for. They'll pay you like $20,000 or $25,000 for. So if you're on a if you're on a 7-writer team and you got 21 episodes, that means 2 of those episodes are going to be yours, and you get probably 25,000 or so for each one of those.
Okay.
And you get your regular salary. So it's still good money if you're on a studio. But independence, okay, you might not make as much. You might not make nearly as much, but you get your story told.
Right. And it's yours.
Thank you. You know, and at this point, I mean, I'm 57, so it's all about the stories now. There are things that I have lived through, or relationships that I've had, or relationships that I wanted to have.
Right.
There's elements of Black love that I want to express, because it is different. You know,
Mm-hmm.
There's elements of that I want to express that I now can. And I'm not interested in as much the money. I want to tell the story.
Hey, I definitely understand that. And speaking of Black stories, yeah, you consider yourself specializing in the romantic comedy.
Yeah.
What made you take that route, as far as not only is it romantic, but romantic comedy? Is that because of the comedic background that you have, or was it just, hey, I think things looks better when you merge these two together?
I think comedy, the one thing I learned when I was doing comedy punch-up, comedy helps you identify with any character. A lot of the things that I punched up back in the day were dramas. You know, you might have a villain that, you're going to hate the villain. There's a reason you hate the villain.
Right.
He's killing people, or he's causing havoc. He's doing all kinds of things. But in order for you to identify with that villain, he's got to have either some quirky behavior or something that draws him, that makes you at least want to care about him enough to see him through the rest of the movie before the rest of him get killed. You know, if you hate him from page 1 on, okay, you're gonna get tired of hating him by page 40. So you got to give him something, and the same is true with love stories. In my personal life, I'm generally a humorous person. So the way that I attract attracted women. I'm married. I'm married for a long
yeah,
time.
you better put the ED on the end of that.
You know, so yeah, back in my dating days, the way that I attracted women was with humor.
Gotcha.
There's my motto then was, if you make them laugh, they'll make you breakfast. So my life is a romantic comedy. You know, even my current, you know, I've been married 30 plus years. I'm going to infuse humor in everything that I do at my house, you know, at work and all that stuff, because that's just who I am. So my love relationships have had elements of humor in them all the time.
Gotcha.
The advantage of being a writer now is, like, even the girls that I couldn't get, I can say, and all the things that I should have said that I didn't say, I can now say in the script, and I can have her react the way I wished she had reacted when, you know, when I was back in the day. So that's the event. That's my niche. That's what I do. I write romantic comedy because my life was one big romantic comedy, and really kind of still is. But I've been asked to write more drama lately, and I find that humor usually comes from places of pain a lot of times, you know, and even my romantic comedy stuff came from, you know, my perception of having to work too hard to get the girl, while the pretty, back in the 80s, the light-skinned wavy hair dude, you know, got the girls. Chocolate Brothers wasn't in then, you know. So I had frustrations with always competing with these light-skinned, you know, wavy hair, green-eyed dudes in the 80s. So my humor comes from that. It comes from a degree of pain and insecurity.
You had drama. The Albie Shores taking over back then.
Oh, if I saw Albie Shores tomorrow and I'm in my car, I'd rather get in the business. Him and El DeBarge, I bet that ever seen while I'm driving on the street. I still burn incense to like a Wesley Snipes temple, because he brought him and Denzel brought Dawson Brothers back, and we ain't leaving.